there. Welcome back to the Life with Old Dogs podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Mimnaugh, and today I am here today with Rita Hogan, who is a clinical canine herbalist located in Olympia, Washington. I'm super excited to have Rita here today. Rita, welcome to our podcast.
I'm super excited to be here. It's awesome. I love the name of your podcast.
Oh,
Look at
thank
the little
you. Thank
dog.
you so much.
Like it.
Thank you. They're all here. Everybody's all gathered around. You just can't see them, but I got a bunch of old dogs right off camera here. Rita, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became a clinical holistic herbalist, a canine herbalist?
Um, I boarded dogs, kennel free. So I had this kennel free boarding facility in the mountains of Tennessee, about an hour outside of Nashville. And I lived with I had 10 dogs of my own. So I lived with like 30 dogs every day. A lot of people thought I was insane, and sometimes I did too. Um, but I learned so much about dogs then. And I had a holistic pug rescue at the time. We rescued hundreds of pugs, and they weren't at my boarding; they were in foster care. And I used herbs with the majority of those pugs, non-toxic herbs, along with the guidance of a vet named Kevin Brummett in Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And we had a good time. But when I was boarding these dogs, I noticed just how sick they were. Um, People would hand me a bag of kibble and a bag of pills, and I thought, what is happening? Because when um, I grew up on a farm in Upper Michigan, and we just didn't treat our dogs like that. Like our dogs, well, mainly my dog Susie, she lived almost well, my family fights about it, but either 27 or 24. But we know for a fact it was 24. And, she came in and out as she pleased. She slept outside sometimes, but we always left the door open for her ajar because we lived out in the middle of nowhere. And she usually would end up in the morning behind my dad's chair. And you she ate table scraps, she ate raw meat, she had raw milk. She foraged. I remember her eating berries and different plants, and she'd be chomping on stuff. She'd eat bunnies and mice and things like
Mhm.
that too. And so, going from that to just the pills, like so many drugs. And the dogs were eating I mean, I would say the bottom of the barrel kibble, like the cheapest stuff that their parents could find. And then their parents would be so perplexed why they were unhealthy and why they were hyper and why they looked like they had little tennis balls under their skin. And
Mhm.
um, so I made some requirements of my boarding facility. Like I said, here's a list of like 15 to 20 kibbles and other diets. There weren't a lot on the market then. I did
Mhm.
have a couple raw feeders that boarded with me, but that's about it. And home cooked, I'd keep it in my freezer and then thaw it when it was ready for them to eat. But all the other dogs were super jealous of their food. Um, and I just made a list of like more higher end, like I call it the kibble hierarchy, like higher on the kibble hierarchy foods that I required because the dogs were just so anxious and restless and hyper and argumentative from the sugars that were in the diet. And so people just saw this huge difference. And then those people became my first herbal clients. Like I was studying herbalism starting in about 2001. I had just gotten out of a stint of studying an Eastern philosophy called Ayurveda, which is a medical system in India and those parts of the world. And um, it just didn't resonate with me. So my dad taught me about plants and on our farm, and I went back to those plants, the plants that if you live in the United
Right.
States, Canada, Ireland, England, um, these types of plants are right outside your door.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how I got my start. And I just decided that someone asked me one day, well, what are you? Like, Well, I'm a canine herbalist. Like I decided to dedicate my life to dogs. They've always been my passion. I love all animals. But dogs have always been, they're so close to you, they can go anywhere with you. And um, although I really have to tell you that I do have my sights set on one of those um, miniature cows.
The Highland,
Uh, I want
the
one real
long
bad.
hair at the
Yeah,
Highland, the Scottish
yeah.
Highland.
Yeah, the
They are
little
cute.
tiny itsy ones. I could picture one being in my house, like, oh yeah, this is my cow. But anyways, yeah, I really decided that I wanted to be just dedicate my life to dogs, and so I just said, I'm a canine herbalist, and I kind of stepped into it and started doing everything that an herbalist does and learning. I've had a lot of mentors, a lot of people that have inspired my work. And the biggest thing for herbalism is that you can read all the books that you want, right? You can get all the courses that you can take. But the real work happens when you're working one on one with people and their dogs.
Right.
Um, that's where you learn the most. And when you're sitting out in a field or in the forest with plants and learning about them and tasting them and bringing them into your body and understanding how they work, um, understanding their properties and not just like going, oh yeah, peppermint's great, but really getting to know peppermint, like tasting it and understanding it and working with it and working with dogs like that. I've been doing that for over 20 years. And I think that that has given me the most experience in, just working on cases with dogs, seeing how they react. Um, I only use non-toxic herbs. So,
So, and I'm listening to you, and I'm hearing what you're saying about actually learning about the herb itself, where you actually use it and see what it does. And I love that because I'm a huge proponent of herbs for the dogs here at Woody's Place Senior German Shepherd Sanctuary. I'm a naturalist. I'm listening to you, and I said it before, we could definitely be friends because this is my philosophy as well. Um, and take mushroom or take marshmallow root, for instance, and slippery elm. Now, they're both good for if your dog has diarrhea. Problem is, one may work for one dog and not work well for the other. And some people might not even know about those two modalities, and they might reach for a pharmaceutical drug instead, like metronidazole, which wreaks havoc on the
it's
whole
a gift that
body,
keeps
but
on giving.
yeah, but especially the gut, right? I mean,
Oh,
yeah, it strips
terrible.
it of absolutely everything, sure. And listen, I have to say, here at the sanctuary, we've been in situations where Giardia has been an issue. Uh, Slippery elm, marshmallow root just didn't cut it, and we had to use metronidazole. But then I beef it up with other things, probiotics and whatnot, to try to, minimize the impact. But I definitely believe in starting with natural properties first and knowing what they do. You have to know firsthand what they do before you can give them to the dog because the dog can't tell you what they're feeling, that it's upsetting their stomach or whatever. So, yes,
Oh,
love what you're
absolutely.
saying here. Love what you're saying. Absolutely. Um,
Thank you.
Now, yeah, and I love the fact that you grew up on a farm as well. I have farm life in my history as well, and I saw you were talking about the dog getting a bunny or a mouse or something like. I didn't even cringe because honestly, it happens here where I live with the dogs of the sanctuary because we have that all over the place and dogs be dogs, they're going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nature's rough. So, nature's not for sissies as far as like some of the stuff that happens in nature. You're just like, oh God, you know, um, and a lot of, farming life is hard as well. So uh um
It is. It is, but
dogs,
it's well worth it.
oh God, absolutely. Dogs have prey drive. Not all dogs. My
Right.
basset hound has like zero prey drive. She can be around anything, chicken, anything, anything. I don't even think she'd try to kill a mouse or a rat or a bunny. She just doesn't care. Um, but most dogs have prey drive, and
Oh,
some
sure.
a heightened sense of prey drive. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
that it's we're reminiscent of the old times and dogs getting into things and doing crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, it wasn't really crazy stuff. I was listening to you speak as well about the rescue in Tennessee, Mount Juliet, Tennessee, which I think is where Old Dog's Friend Sanctuary is, to be honest with you. I
Oh
don't know
wow.
if you're familiar with that group, but they're there and they're wonderful. But and I get that here as well when dogs come here and they have the tennis balls tucked under their skin, just like you're saying, the fatty lipomas, and they're coming in with their bag of like Old Roy or whatever the heck it is, pedigree, and here's their carprofen and blah blah blah. And again, I am not. How do I put this? I'm not poo-pooing Western medication. I believe there's a time and a place if necessary, but I also
Yeah.
believe in what you're saying. You treat the whole dog, you give them what their body actually requires and not a bag of processed, sugary, carby junk. And then you don't have as many problems down the road where medications like carprofen and Remedil may be necessary because the dog wasn't, fed properly, exercised properly, their whole lives. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't poo poo. I don't really, I don't kibble shame. I don't do any of that stuff. I really have to meet people where they are, and I want to meet
Right.
people where they are. And I really think it's important for people to take baby steps. But when
Hmm.
people like, going from something like Old Roy or Pedigree to Pedigree was a huge one for me at
Hmm.
the boarding kennel. Going from something like that to even something like wellness, a food like wellness or go, um, just a night and day difference in like 3 months,
Right.
just night and day. And um, people would just like, oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, you know, for a few bucks more, like you can get a better quality diet going in. And then anytime you can add fresh food, it
Right.
helps. So,
Oh, yeah. 10 to even 10% of fresh food a day added to high quality kibble. And listen, we have a lot of dogs and I try to cook as often as possible. I'm a certified canine nutritionist. So I try to cook as often as possible. But life happens, it's like having little kids and you cook and then one night you have McDonald's just because you're just wiped and you can't even think of cooking. So
yeah,
we
I
do
totally
high quality
understand.
kibble. Yeah, we'll do high quality kibble as well with fresh food on top and herbs. I Here at the sanctuary we have a huge garden. I'm looking at it right now out the window. It's just totally grown over and dead right now. But I also have an
Yeah.
indoor. I also have an indoor garden. It's a grow tent I bought on Amazon, and all winter long I have rosemary, thyme, marjoram, oregano, basil, um, lemon verbena. I have all kinds of stuff growing in there all year long that I just cut off and I put in their food and mine because I truly believe in herbal properties for overall health.
Great. That makes me happy.
Yeah, so you have a book coming out. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Do it's my book. Um, my book is called The Herbal Dog, and it is a kind of like a synopsis of my work over the last 20 years. So, and when you're when you're writing a book and you're working with a traditional publisher, right? Um, you have to figure out what you want to put in your book. You in the beginning you want to put everything in there, but then you have editors and they're like, no, that doesn't really go. So I had to, I really strategically figured out what would be of service to a lot of people. What have I worked on the most with people? What is the most frustrating for people? I have a teaching platform, so I have some things that aren't in the book on the teaching platform. But so I really included things like, yeast, uh, food intolerances, which, I cover leaky gut and recovering from antibiotics, which is a huge thing, preparing for surgery and recovering after surgery. Um, Yeast, oh, I said yeast, acid reflux, arthritis, pain, um, oh God, there's histamine intolerance. That's a big one that people don't realize that is going on, right? Um, People don't understand histamine intolerance, like candida overgrowth. They don't understand that it's going on. So, yeah, it's really important to kind of understand these big major issues. I have the little issues in there too, like constipation, diarrhea, vomiting, and all types of vomiting, like the yellow vomiting in the morning. What does that mean? What can you do for it? And, um, but I do cover a lot of the major issues that are the root cause of all of these other little issues. I do have a Giardia program in here, um, how to heal
Oh,
Giardia.
I'm gonna look at that.
Yeah, and I will tell you one thing that you should have on hand is blackberry leaf tincture. Um, when
Oh,
nothing else will work for diarrhea, that's my first go-to for diarrhea, and I hardly ever use slippery elm or marshmallow or anything. I use blackberry leaf tincture because it keeps diarrhea from happening. You have nice, maybe not nicely formed stools, but formed stools. So you can use that in conjunction with help bringing down the inflammation in the gut. Um, I also deal with like things like arthritis, seasonal allergies. I help you learn how to prepare a protocol, like put a herbal protocol together. But I answer those questions that people that are lacking a lot of the times in any type of natural remedy book for dogs, which is dosages. You know, where to start, how far can you go up in dosage? What form of herb should you use? Should you use a powder, a tea? Should you use a tincture or a glycerate? Um, and when to stop? How do you know an herb is working? So a lot of I have a whole entire chapter on expectations, because I think expectations is what makes people so frustrated with herbs, because they are comparing plants to pharmaceutical medicine. Because over the last like hardcore 60 years, but 100 years, we have been pharmaceutically conditioned to expect things to work within 30 minutes. And you could get lucky. Usually with homeopathy or flower essence, you can get lucky with like a dog calming down or vomiting. But like with herbs, you really have to give it some time, sometimes up to 12 weeks. The goal for any herbal protocol or herb in general is to move in the right direction. You pick an herb that's well indicated according to your dog's symptoms, but what we want is to see improvement. And if you don't see improvement within 12 weeks, you need to stop that herb or change the dosage. It could be a dosage issue. Usually you deal with dosage kind of on the way to 12 weeks, see how your dog does. Um, so I answer a lot of those questions that people are wondering. And then in the back of the book, I have a materia medica, which means that it's kind of like a resume for herbs. And so I cover, I think, over 30 herbs, mushrooms, um, plant stem cells, which I explain a little bit in the book. I have another book coming out on those, but I do include some of my favorites for people because they fill in gaps where I haven't really found strong like mature herbal presence. Um, I also cover things like vitamins and minerals and supplements, and like, let's just say sodium butyrate. How much do you give? Or charcoal or chlorella, things that aren't really an herb, but they're found in the dog world a lot. And how much do what is the dosage for that?
Mhm.
And then the beginning of the book is all about teaching you about your dog as an ecosystem, like looking at the main systems in the body and how they are interconnected, not separate. Uh,
Right.
and when you understand that, you can understand and get to the bottom of what is actually going on with your dog, instead of chasing symptoms. So I've put a lot into
Right.
it. It's let's see, how many pages? It's 440 pages. So, but it's a learning book. It's also a reference book,
Right.
right? So you can use it as a reference, like, oh God, honey, Dexter has diarrhea. Oh, that's right. We've got that book. And then you can go in there to the diarrhea section, learn all about the different types of diarrhea, and your answers should be in there. So,
Mhm.
uh, I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the book.
You should be. 400 pages, that's a lot of information. I have to ask you, because of course we do German Shepherds here, and
Yeah.
you know, any little thing can throw off their gut health and we end up with diarrhea. Now, you mentioned the blackberry leaf tincture.
Yeah.
So
It
I
is.
have to ask you because we have that literally growing all around the sanctuary. I pick wild blackberries like the end of July through August. Now you're telling me I can use those leaves. They're totally organic. I can
Yeah.
use those
So,
leaves
yeah. So in the spring, pick a whole bunch of them,
in the
let them
spring.
dry,
Okay.
let them dry. Um, uh, and I would keep some, you know, in some glass bottles and in a
Yes.
dark spot so they don't fade. And, but you can also take some of those fresh leaves, chop them up, put them in alcohol, and you can do half alcohol, half glycerin. It doesn't matter. Um, and let it sit for like I let mine sit for like 5 or 6 weeks. I shake them a couple times a week, let it, and then strain it out, put it in bottles. Just make sure you can do all glycerin, but I find that it's not as effective. The cool thing about the diarrhea is that it's acute, right? So you're
Mhm.
in my opinion, a lot of diarrhea is caused by chronic disease. But with blackberry leaf, you are working, as an acute remedy to help your dog not have diarrhea for more than 24 hours, right? Diarrhea sometimes needs to happen to get things out.
Right.
However, your dog will be pooping, but it won't be complete and utter liquid, which
Mess.
nobody
Okay.
likes to clean up, right? Nobody likes to clean that up. I have a dog with that issue.
Oh,
Owen. My old dog, my old Basset, she's 15. She has anal cancer. If I don't give her the
oh.
blackberry leaf, uh, it is projectile volcano poop, which
Hmm.
doesn't make anyone happy. Her,
No.
nobody. So if she gets
No.
blackberry leaf every day, she gets a half a dropper, and a half a dropper, just for people who are freak out about alcohol. A half a dropper. Can I just explain alcohol for a
Sure.
second?
Yeah, please.
Um, I, I give you absolute specifics about alcohol in here. I won't go into that, but um, when you're dealing with alcohol, so with blackberry leaf, you're gonna have like a 50 proof, or I'm sorry, like 100 proof alcohol, which is 50% alcohol and 50% water. Okay, so fresh plants have about 80 to 95% water. Okay, so when you put alcohol and water in a mass of herbs, you're getting the water in the alcohol plus the water in the plants, and it's mixing. And sometimes tincture makers add a little more water. It just depends on the plant. But drop for drop, you need about 7 drops, 7 to 8 drops, depending on the mixture of tincture to equal one single drop of alcohol. Um, And for a half a dropper, you're dealing with 15 drops. So at the most, you're having 2 drops of alcohol, which is not going to hurt a teacup chihuahua, right? It's just
Right.
not.
Okay.
And um acutely, right? I'm not going to give 15 drops of tincture to a teacup chihuahua every single day. I'm going to find the minimum dose for the maximum benefit. I would probably switch to a glycerate if I had to do that, or I might do half and half. Like I might get a blackberry leaf glycerate and a blackberry leaf tincture and mix them 50-50 to bring down that alcohol content. But you can also evaporate the alcohol off. You can put your tincture in a shot glass, put it in some hot water. I don't do boiling water, but hot water. Let it evaporate for about 20 minutes. Most of the alcohol will be gone.
Hmm.
And if you're super worried about alcohol and the liver, all you do is you put your dog some thistle when you're giving your dog tinctures, and it helps protect the liver against any damages of alcohol. I have a couple of friends that drink a lot, right? They're very recreational drinkers. And I've sat them down and I've told them, the body talks and you can tell when someone's liver's not working great. And I just tell them, listen, I'm not saying anything against the alcohol. You do what you want to do, but you need to take 500 milligrams of milk thistle in the morning that you're going to drink and 3 times that day,
Hmm.
because I
To help
love them.
offset the damage.
Yes. And I want them to live a long time and I love them and I want their livers to work better. And, large amounts of alcohol are hard on the liver, especially like when you're drinking martinis or something like that. Um, I recently, when over Christmas, someone bought me a huckleberry lemon drop like premix, not a premix, like a cocktail in a bottle. So it was
Right. Uh-huh.
all the stuff. And I don't drink very much at all, maybe once or twice a year. And I had a little bit on some shaved ice, and I'm like, oh, this is strong. I mean, I would have much more huckleberry than alcohol. And I took 2 sips of it, and I swear to you, I felt like I was getting a buzz. And so I put it down, and I walked over to the fridge, and I looked at the bottle, and it was 35% alcohol. And I was like, oh, like okay. And I'm swigging it down, and I was like, I mean, I had like 2 drinks, but that for me, that's swigging. But I was like,
Mhm.
oh, and I just decided not to drink it because it was just really hot. So if I ever, it's still in my fridge, but if I ever choose to drink it, I'll probably mix 1 part of that to like 3 parts of something, uh, like a tea or something like that. Because yeah, it was a
Right.
lot. The issue with alcohol-based tinctures is that the alcohol has a very dominant taste,
Hmm.
right? So you can put a drop of tincture on your tongue and you're like, whoo. Um, it doesn't mean that it's all alcohol. So it's being a medicine maker, there's a lot of math involved. But I explain alcohol in my book exactly, how people came up with, that dogs shouldn't have tinctures. It's based on some crazy math with animal experimentation. And yeah, so 1 drop of alcohol to 7-8 drops of tincture. So it's very safe in small amounts. I don't like if you said, well, I give my dog a dropper of tincture 3 times a day and they weigh 20 pounds, still they would be okay. But I would be like, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't want to do that.
So it can have adverse effects if there is going to be any on a smaller dog rather than a larger dog. Is that what you're saying, or just regardless over time?
No, weight is very dependent in
Hmm.
with a glycerate based tincture that don't work as well. for many plants, right? The plant is what you're trying to extract out of it, and that's a long conversation. But for some glycerates, and I have a list in my book, and it's quite long. Glycerate tinctures or extracts do okay. Usually, for me, it's like usually triple the dose of an alcoholic tincture. But glycerin has its own side effects. But if like for Chihuahua, let's just use a Chihuahua as an example versus a German Shepherd. So for a Chihuahua, a large dose for a Chihuahua to me would be 8 drops. 8 drops of tincture. That's a pretty large dose for a dog that's under 7 pounds. I would use it acutely for a week and be fine. But would I give them that every single day, 3 times a day, depending on the herb? Probably not. I would probably drop it down to like 4 drops every single day, 3 times a day would be fine. Now, a German Shepherd could do 8 drops every day for the rest of its life and probably be fine if the herb was nice and non-toxic. Because, they have bigger livers and bigger everything. But I would say the average dose for a German Shepherd, given a tincture every single day, for me, it would be less than 15 drops, less than a half a dropper, unless they had cancer. If they had cancer, then we might need a hammer and might need to push a little bit more, but less than 15 drops, which some people would disagree. Some other people would say, oh no, they can take like 30, 40 drop. For me, I'm a very safe herbalist. I would rather pick a more well-indicated herb or add some different types to go along with that tincture that don't involve alcohol. But again, you could also just evaporate the alcohol and make it into a glycerate. So there's so many things you can do with herbalism. And when you start getting your paws wet and start working with certain things, that information just comes with practice. But with my book, a lot of
You
the
cut all that
information,
out.
yes, and it is based on my practice. So, it's just one view of Western herbalism. But I've been doing this a long time, and I really want this information to be out there.
And I think it needs to be. Let me ask you something. Now, I mentioned the leaves of the blackberry bushes and canes and having them all over the property here. What about people who don't? Where do they get products like this? I mean, they're interested, they get your book, they learn more about it. What about the actual tinctures themselves? Where do people get that?
So, in my book, it'll say, see theherbaldog.com for more information. So on the herbaldog.com, I'll have extensive sourcing.
Okay.
I'll be building sourcing continually, as I get more referrals from people. Right now, like if you're in the United States, Mountain Rose Herbs is a great place.
Mm-hmm.
I tend not to get anything off of Amazon. It sits in their warehouse for a long time, and it's not well curated. Etsy has a ton of small herbalists on Etsy making medicine. I would check their reviews and all about them, and you can send them questions and ask them questions. How long have you been doing this? Is anything sprayed? You can ask them questions. Some of them might not be organic, but they might be organically grown. Like my tinctures that I sell on my shop are not certified organic, but they're organically grown. I don't use anything, like nothing,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing. I use some homeopathy on my plants, but I use absolutely nothing. Like the plants that don't make it, and the plants that do, do. I just try to be a better gardener each
Mm-hmm.
year. But I don't use anything. I tend to plant enough so that pests have some plants to eat, and so do I. Um,
Right.
so, so yeah, I have a list of things in the United States, some farms, and then, your local, farmers market has, usually have this book a lot of states have a book to the farms in their area. And I would definitely pick one of those up during the summer. Um, but Oregon's Wild Harvest is awesome. I love that company for herbs. Herbalist and Alchemist um, is a great supplement company. And then in Canada, Harmonic Arts is a wonderful one. Herbie's Herbs. So I have these on my website, and also like I have Australia and England. I'm working on all of those for sourcing. Um, I can't every country, but I'm doing the most that will probably hear about my book and stuff. So I've got you covered on that because and like buying herbal supplies, and if you don't have to make anything yourself, right? You can buy things already made and give them to your dog. I also have a list of some really great companies making some really great foods and supplements. So I don't get any
That's right.
kickbacks for anything. They're not affiliate links. They're just no affiliates are allowed on my Herbal Dog page. So
Okay.
um,
It's just what you
um,
believe in.
yeah, yeah, I don't have
Okay.
any affiliate links. And I do have like under my book tour because I'm doing a 9-month book tour. Um, I do have some sponsors, but they are not part of the Herbal Dog resources at all.
Okay. So herbaldog.com is your website. And
The Herbal Dog, yeah, the
the,
herbaldog.com.
the herbaldog.com. And I'll make sure I have that information in the show notes at the end of this podcast for people to just click directly on the link to take them right to your website. Um, theherbaldog.com. Now, you said it was a teaching platform. So not only is it going to tell us about you, not only is it going to tell us about your book, you also said it teaches. So I saw you have a podcast as well. Um, so obviously there's good information on that. And you have courses, I believe, and webinars that people can take, correct?
Yes. So the courses are actually on a different platform. They're on canineherbalism.com.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So my public, when you have a traditionally published book, you kind of have to adhere to the guidelines of your publisher. So
Sure.
my book site is only for my book and my tour. Um,
Okay.
I have Canine Herbalist with a T.com and canineherbalism.com. So the Canine Herbalism website is for teaching, and it has my podcast, Dogs Are Individuals, on there. It also has this fun subscription group that it's called the Pet Canine Herbalist Advisory, and you can go on there for $15 a month, ask me any question anytime about anything. And um, I, like I do a lot of consulting, but I'm booked out for months. And so a lot of people just want to ask me questions. And that's the easiest way to get a hold of me because I spend a couple hours every day, except for weekends, answering questions on that platform. I coach
Mhm.
people with dogs with problems. I do a lot of that. And one thing I wanted to tell you is that my teaching platform has a rescue program. And for any of you out there that do have a 501c3 rescue program, or in another country, like a certified rescue program, I
Okay.
give a free seat in all my courses.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, in
So you
my
have to be a 501c3. I'm going to put this in the show notes as well.
yeah, you have to be a 501c3.
Okay.
Um, and you can like the head of the rescue can designate one person to take the courses to be like the advocate for the rescue, and you can change that person once every 2 years.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and the reason why we did that is because when I ran Music City Pug Rescue, I would have loved to know the information that is found in my courses, like how to deal with teeth, how to deal with fleas, how to deal with like how do we give herbs? Because it's all about budget and helping as many dogs as you can.
Right.
Um, and a lot of times something very inexpensive can help your dog. And when you're buying pharmaceuticals and running to the vet for diarrhea or, vomiting and things like that, that don't warrant a vet visit, right? Some of them do. Um, I would have loved to have the information that I provide in my courses. And so we have a large rescue community that takes the courses, and it's absolutely free. So the only thing
Wow.
that you can't take is I have a thing called Materia Medica monthly. It's $12 a month. It's like a resume. We deal with one herb each month, and then the parent advisory. But inside the courses, you can ask questions in each lesson. So you can ask questions. And then I have a live every month for the
Oh,
whole
nice.
platform. And so you can come in there on the live and ask any question you want for free. So rescues, I love it.
That's very generous, very, very generous. And most rescues are working on a shoestring budget, unfortunately, and
Yes.
could really use that the benefit of your wisdom. So thank you for that. That is very generous, and I certainly am going to sign someone from our group up for that.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you touched base on fleas a little bit. Now, I just had somebody here at the sanctuary a couple weeks ago, and they have a flea infestation in their house. And they said, in addition to all the dogs we have, we also have a small cat rescue here too. And we have about 10 cats. And they said, how is it you don't end up with fleas? And I said, well, I don't use heavy hitter pesticide, whatever medication for fleas. Um, I make sure they're brushed regularly. I put real garlic in their food. I'm talking real garlic in their food.
Yeah.
And if I think there's going to be an issue, and even if I don't think there's going to be an issue, I sprinkle diatomaceous earth, food grade diatomaceous earth around. I wash their bedding regularly. Food grade diatomaceous earth, it's easy to get. It won't hurt them. It's actually good for the environment, and it kills fleas. So I sprinkle that
Yes,
all
it
over the
does.
place. Yeah, I let it sit, and then I vacuum it up. And so far in the history of Woody's Place, now it's been an entity since 2009, officially a 501c3 since 2011. We've only had two flea infestations in all that time. So, I mean, are we just lucky, or does that work? I think it actually works, and that's, without buying any sort of topical treatment for
Yeah.
fleas
A lot of people
or
don't
cholera.
realize. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that it's normal for a dog to have a couple of fleas. Like we flea comb our cats and our dogs. Like why we, settle down after 8 o'clock at night. We settle down and they all come, and my partner flea combs them. The cats absolutely love it, and
Oh yeah.
he finds a couple fleas. uh we use a little soapy water or whatever, and that's it. Like I've never had a flea infestation. Dogs with flea allergies are hard, but like my flea
Right.
course covers all of that. How and if you have to use the meds, right, what meds to use and what to give before you ever give that medication, because that's the issue. Like, because the medication is a poison, you have to
Hmm.
prepare your dog's organs and nervous system, because most of them have nerve toxin in them. And
Right.
you have to prepare their nervous system and their liver and kidneys to really take the brunt of that medicine. And um and I recommend giving it the entire time, the whole 30 days, if you have to give it for 30 days, and what to avoid. And like a lot of topicals, um the topical ones, you're being affected by them as well. They get all over your
That's right.
home,
Hmm.
and they get all over you, and you don't realize it. And if you test your blood levels, you'll find that toxin in your blood.
Sure. Yes, and true. And I'm not saying we have not ever used topicals, because we have a huge issue with ticks here, but gloves. Definitely wear gloves, wash hands afterwards and whatnot. Um, in addition to what I was just saying about the diatomaceous earth, now I have to admit I buy it just because I don't have time to make it. There's a wonderful product that is essential oils um, to help prevent a flea infestation that I use on a regular basis as well. And they come in different essential oils. Lemongrass is one, cedarwood is another, peppermint is another. And I have to be honest with you, I'll just spray them just because they smell so good. So, and you can even spray them directly on the dogs, and it doesn't hurt them. And they end up smelling nice as well. So, not going to mention the name of that product. I do make stuff here myself, but listen, sometimes there's just not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it sounds like you've got a good system there for sure.
I'm trying, I'm always learning, and I'm definitely going to be looking into your book as well. So, is the book out on shelves now, or is it coming out?
No, it's coming out on February 4th, but you can pre-order it.
Okay.
You can pre-order it anywhere you buy books. So anywhere. So when you go to the Herbal Dog, it'll have the front page has a list of places where it's for sale, like the obvious places like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target. Um, but there's one place that has a really good sale, and I checked it yesterday. It's still on, and that's thriftbooks.com.
I know
THRI
that. Yeah.
thriftbooks.com. It's
Okay.
almost $6 off with free shipping.
Oh, for pre-order?
Oh, for pre-order. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
And
was
from
like,
what I
wow.
understand, I'm sorry, what was that?
Oh, nothing, nothing, nothing.
I really don't know anything about publishing a book, but from what I understand, pre-orders are pretty important, correct?
They are. Yeah, they are.
Okay. So let's get some pre-orders then.
Yeah. They are, they never used to be, but now they are. So that now they're a big thing. Like, you have to sell your book before it even comes out. So, you know, it is the way it is, right? I have to work within the system
Right.
I've got. So, yeah,
Right.
pre-orders are a big thing.
Okay. All right. Well, Rita, this has been fantastic. Believe me, I told you before we started recording, I always write down notes for my own benefits, and I have just a whole bunch of notes here that I'm going to dig deeper into thanks to you. Um, I've loved this, and I hope this information resonates with our audience, and I'm sure it will because they're always looking for other alternatives, safer alternatives for their senior dogs when it comes to their wellness. Everybody wants their dog to live longer. They love their dogs, and I truly believe that we are starting to recognize the fact that dogs are actually family members and need to be treated as such, and we want what's best for our family. So thank you so much for taking the time for all of this information. Um, and again, can you just clarify where we can find out more about you online?
You go to Canine Herbalist with a T, .com. That is my store and my, where I have a teaching platform at canineherbalism.com, my book website at theherbaldog.com. And then on socials, I'm on Instagram under Canine Herbalist and Facebook under Canine Herbalist.
Okay. And again, I'm going to make sure all of this is in the show notes with clickable links. People love just links that you could click right on and be taken right to it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make sure that's in the show notes for people to just click directly right on there and find out more about you and all of your wonderful wisdom about canine herbalism. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You take care too.